Welcome to another live stream. It is Wednesday, April 9th, 2025 at 2 p.m. Pacific. Or it will be 2 p.m. in a few seconds here. Came on a little bit early. I put out announcements on Facebook and X. I did not announce this more than 30 minutes early, so that might have cut into um, some of the ability to get the word out there because I think YouTube puts out uh, a notification 30 minutes in advance and then right at the start of the stream. So if I announce it less than 30 minutes in advance, then maybe I just miss out on that opportunity to get that pre-announcement, and I just have to rely on the notification at the time the stream goes live. So um, usually I get the announcement at least 30 minutes in advance, but I was a little short on time today, so fewer announcements. Um, Anyways, I see we got one person here, Latent Prion. Hello, I recognize you. Remember we chatted on a previous live stream. You called in, and we talked about Alex Epstein, uh, and I think that was the last time I've seen you here. I made a few comments on that chat in the next live stream, I think. I don't know if you heard that, but I had some more thoughts after we talked, and I wanted to mention those. So the next live stream, if you want to check that out, if you haven't already, you might be interested in that. Um, okay, so far we've just got Latent Prion here, um, who says "Sup nerds." Um, Let me see if I had any. Yeah, I had a few notes, things I might just mention at the start. I've been reading about England still. I usually do a little reading update, what I've been up to in terms of reading lately. I just almost finished reading an article today about King Stephen of England. He was the king in the High Middle Ages from the years 1135 to 1154. This was during a period called the Anarchy. There was lots of fighting for the throne, I guess more than usual, um, in the wake of the death of the prior king, Henry the First. There were two factions fighting it out. There was King Stephen on the one hand, and then on the other hand, there was Empress Matilda, Henry's daughter. So she thought she had the rightful claim, but Stephen usurped the throne, and then for close to 20 years, there was a war, civil war, and eventually Stephen agreed to relinquish the throne to Henry II upon his own death. So it was a different house. The House of Plantagenet is where Henry was from, Henry II, and Stephen was from the House of Blois or Blois. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's a French word, Blois. So he agreed that Stephen and Henry agreed that Henry would inherit the throne, but Stephen would be able to keep it until his death, which happened in 1154. So there's some details about what I've been reading, which uh, maybe you've never heard of. Maybe you'll forget in 2 seconds. Maybe I will forget in a year. I don't know. I'm not sure how long I retain some of the stuff that I read. Some of it sticks longer than others. Um, all right. Let's see. There's anything. Oh, let's see. There's another comment from Latent Prion. Let's see what he says. I wasn't aware you made comments on your most recent stream. I love to respond to them, but the issue is that your stream was most likely 1 hour or more, so I can't skim it quickly enough to respond right now. Okay, so one thing you can do to find something in a stream, I don't know, sometimes I put timestamps in the descriptions, and that'll help find sections of the stream. I don't know if I included a timestamp on that one. Um, Maybe I'll take a look while I'm talking here. But another thing you can do is you can look in um, the transcript. YouTube automatically generates a transcript of the live stream, and if you go to that, then you might be able to put in a keyword search like Alex, and then that'll quickly take you to the section where I was talking about, where I was commenting on the exchange we had in the prior live stream. I'm just navigating to it right now on my channel. Okay, so looks like we talked in the March 22nd live stream, number 7. That's the number of the stream and the date are given in the title. And so if you go to the one after that, oh yeah, so I wrote fossil fuels and nuclear in the title. Um, that's the one where I made some comments. So that was 13 days ago, YouTube says. Uh, that would have been live stream number 8, March 26th. And if I click on the description panel, there's a button that says show transcript. And I don't know if you're using a laptop or a uh, mobile device, mobile phone, but at least on the laptop version, there's a button that says show transcript in the description panel. So you click on that, then there's a transcript, and then you can just do a find, Control F. Now that's another thing which I don't know of a way to do on the mobile phone, but on the laptop, you can do Control F on the transcript, and that will take you to the right spot. Okay, so I just did that, and it says at 24:51 of that call, live stream number 8. Um, that's about where the section starts, I think. Or at least the first place I mentioned Alex. I don't know if I immediately talk about it, but yeah, it looks like maybe around 25, minute number 25. I see. Oh, that's actually something else. Looks like I don't quite get into it at that point. So a little bit later, talk about meritocracy. Oh yeah, I see that's also in the title before I get to fossil fuels. Um, some about Ukraine as well. Okay. 39, 38 minutes in. Looks like maybe that's where I get to it. Uh, yeah, I think around like 38, 39 minutes in is where I start making some comments. Okay, I'm just going to highlight that. Okay. And I don't know how long I talked about it. It might have been like 5 minutes or something. Um, Latent Prion says, well, we can talk about something else anyway. I don't think the idea of individualist policy being a meritocracy is correct. I think meritocracy is an anti-concept. Okay, so that was another one where um, I made some follow-up comments. I don't know if let me take another look at my uh, log of live streams to see where that one was. So I talked about meritocracy in, oh, okay. I guess that was the same one where you called in. I made some comments on meritocracy, and then in the following um, live stream, I made some additional comments about meritocracy, some things that I thought would have been good to make when I first talked about it, but it just didn't come to mind. Um, I was saying how I didn't think meritocracy was good if that meant rule, like people get to coerce or use force against people who have less merits. Um, I don't think that's correct. But if it just means judging people on the basis of like how skilled they are at something, and those skills are relevant um, to a job, like for instance, if you're going to be a manager, um, what's not relevant is your gender or your race. At least in most cases, I don't know if the job has something to do with race or gender, then maybe it arguably is relevant, but at least for most jobs, something like race or gender is not going to be relevant. And it's better to judge someone like on how good they are in dealing with people. Um, so yeah, I think meritocracy it could be a kind of package deal concept, to use the term Ayn Rand sometimes uses, where there's elements of things that are essentially different. So depending on what exactly you mean by meritocracy, it could be good or not good. There's been I think at least one podcast by the Ayn Rand Institute where this concept meritocracy is discussed. I don't know if they say it's a package deal or an anti-concept, but there's some problem that they identify. And I think I was basically trying to spell that out, those problematic issues in that follow-up discussion of meritocracy, which was also the same live stream as the follow-up discussion of your and my call. Um, okay, so Latent Prion has a couple more comments. You might want to, he says, you might want to consider that live streams aren't sequential episodes and that it's fine to repeat comments, i.e., viewers don't have to catch up on prior content. Yeah, true. Um, I'm not going to repeat everything I said before. I just tried to give some of the main points I was making about meritocracy. And maybe I'll do that with fossil fuels too, um, especially since you're here and you might be the only one here right now. Um, maybe I'll see if I can remember some of the key points I was making so you don't have to go back right now and listen. Uh, let's see, there's one other comment from you. You say there are hot topics of the month at any given time, and people will just call in and talk about them. So as a streamer, you'll have to repeat yourself a lot anyways. If I'm doing a certain type of show, yeah. Yeah, like um, if you do a news show like Yaron Brook does, whose show I listen to a lot, actually, probably more than any other show. I listen to the Yaron Brook show, and I just put a post out on Facebook and X and on YouTube saying how I think I said the Yaron Brook show is maybe my favorite podcast. Um, I guess the other main competitor to it would be the Ayn Rand Institute's podcast. I also get a lot of value from that. It's also a podcast that comments on the news, but not just on the news. Well, that's true of Euron's too. He doesn't always just comment on the news. Sometimes he has other types of shows, but I guess for the most part, it's a news show. Mine isn't really, well, it's very new. It doesn't really have it's certainly not committed to being a news show. Sometimes I have things to say about something that's going on in the news, or people call in about some things on the news, but um, I don't advertise this as a news show. It's not like a place you go to keep up with the news, even if you happen to hear about some things on the news. Now, maybe it'll eventually become something more like that. But right now, it's mostly just a way for me to engage with people. I wanted a way for people to be able to easily engage with me. So I thought having a live stream where people can chat live and do live calls would be good. Before I started the live stream, I just put out pre-recorded videos, and there's not as much opportunity for me to engage with people that way. Um, I mean, I can engage with people in the chat when I premiere one of my videos, um, but that's not the same amount of engagement I have now, where people can actually call in, not just engage me in chat. And I think there has been an uptick in engagement on my channel since I've been doing live streams. It's a lot easier for me to put out videos when I live stream. It takes much less preparation. I don't have to find somebody to have a call with, or debate or discussion, and then schedule that, um, and then prepare for the debate. It's a lot of time and work to do those pre-recorded calls compared to live stream, where pretty much I just jump on, and it doesn't take preparation. Um, so the bang for the buck, at least in terms of like watch time, I think is much higher for live streams. Like sometimes my live streams get more, maybe a lot more um, time watched than pre-recorded videos, even though the pre-recorded videos took a lot more time and effort to set up. Um, and one of the metrics that I keep an eye on is watch time. Like, because I have to get to a certain amount of watch time uh, for YouTube to to allow me to apply to have my channel monetized. I have to get 4,000 hours of watch time within the last 12 months. And I found that so far, at least, live streaming has been a good way to increase the watch time. We got some more comments coming in from Latent Prion. He says, with regard to meritocracy, I define it as it's used in common parlance. Some capability slash resource was earned by volitional effort rather than bestowed or endowed without effort. Parentheses, whether by biology or gifting. Okay. Okay, yeah, I think that's at least part of the concept as people understand it. But that the ending of the word "crasi," we talked about that some. Well, no, I guess a little different. And I think it was the last live stream we talked about anarchy and the etymology of it. I had a call from friend Harper. Um, what is the anarchy of the etymology of the word anarchy? It's like the absence of a leader or a chief. Now, archy is different than crassy. Uh, um, I'm not sure exactly what the difference is, but I guess something to do with rule. So if you take crassy to mean rule by those with merits, then it starts to become questionable whether it's a good thing. Like, well, I guess that depends on what exactly does rule mean. Does that mean you get to initiate force against people, coerce them? Well, if so, then uh, that's I'd say that's a bad thing. But if it just means that part that you're highlighting, like judging people based on capabilities, things that were earned by volitional effort, then yeah, that part of it um, would be okay. And then Latent Prion adds, If you want to engage with people, you can also start an OnlyFans. Just kidding, he says, unless you're going to do it. No, I don't have any plans to do that. Um, oh, we got another person here. Welcome. Evil Tiki 13 says, what topics within objectivism or philosophy more broadly are you most interested in? Do you consider yourself an expert on any topics in objectivism or philosophy more broadly? Just a second. Thanks for the question, Evil Tiki 13. Um, okay, topics I'm most interested in. Well, these days, I guess I'm most interested in that is topics within objectivism, he asks. I'd say ethics and politics. Those are certainly what I spend most of my time discussing and thinking about. They're the ones that I most commonly discuss on my YouTube channel. When I first started the channel, I had a project that I called the Selfishness Project, which consisted of having discussions with people about the concept of selfishness, which, if you're familiar with Ayn Rand's view of, she has a distinctive view of that concept. And I try to impart what I had learned from Ayn Rand about selfishness or self-interest to just random people. And I would go around and interview people and have discussions about that. Now, that went on for maybe about a year. And then I decided I wanted to have a broader focus for my channel. I didn't want it to be just on selfishness. I wanted to talk about philosophy more broadly. And so then I expanded the scope of my channel and no longer just did that selfishness project, but I was basically engaging with people on any topic in objectivism or philosophy, like from an objectivist perspective. So I'd still have objectivism kind of always in the background, at least implicitly, if not explicitly. And I would bring that to conversations on a wide array of philosophical topics. So I've had discussions with people about free will, about religion, the existence of God. Um, I think very little on aesthetics. I can think of one off the top of my head where we got into aesthetics a little bit, but some on human nature, free will. I think I mentioned philosophy of mind. Those two actually are topics I specialized in graduate school. I wrote a master's thesis on free will and then a PhD dissertation on philosophy of mind. And I've discussed these at some length in other videos on my channel. But for the most part, for the last few years, at least, while I've been doing this channel, my main interest has been ethics and politics. Or at least that's what I've talked about the most. I don't feel like I have a strong urge to talk about some other topic that I'm not talking about, like free will, for instance. But I'm happy to discuss that if there are other people out there for whom that's a particular interest. Um, so I like the way I advertise this stream, I just say chat/debate with an Ayn Rand fan and philosophy PhD. And for today's stream, I added, I take live calls. So there's nothing in there about a particular topic. It's just kind of specifying the nature of who I am, what my general perspective is. I'm a fan of Ayn Rand's and some about my background. I have a philosophy PhD, but I don't try to narrow it down to a specific set of topics like ethics or politics. I'm open for people to talk about pretty much anything they want to raise. Um, and I guess I can always veto a topic if it's, not something I want to discuss, but um, at least as a kind of default, I just leave it open and then people can bring what topics they're interested in. And then I'll give whatever thoughts or comments I have on that topic. Okay, so we got some more people or more comments coming into the chat. Nice to see. So let's see. Does that answer everything I wanted to say about Evil Tiki's comments? Um, I guess that's the first half. What am I most interested in? But then the second part of it was, do I consider myself an expert on any topics in objectivism or philosophy more broadly? Well, let me take philosophy more broadly. I guess if I am an expert on some topic in philosophy more broadly, I would say free will and philosophy of mind, which, as I mentioned, were the topics that I wrote. I wrote a master's thesis on free will and then a PhD dissertation on philosophy of mind, or some other names that goes by that are the metaphysics of consciousness, or the mind body problem, or the mind brain problem. Or it's basically how do the mental and the physical relates, or the mind and the body. There's different terms that can be used to describe the issue, but hopefully at least one of those ways of describing it gives you an idea of what I'm talking about. So I would say since I focused the most in graduate school on those topics and wrote on them extensively, I would say I'm most expert on those topics and philosophy more generally or more broadly. Now, compared to like a professor who might have spent his entire career, like decades, writing on these topics, I guess I wouldn't be an expert relative to someone like that. Which isn't necessarily to say that his view is more right or or wrong. That's an independent issue. Like just because you specialize on something for a long time doesn't necessarily mean you have a truer answer. But it probably means you are much more familiar and engaged with the literature and know a lot more details about the debates, the state of the debate. But at least as far as it goes for a PhD student or a graduate student, I would say those are the two topics I'm most expert in. Now, am I an expert on any topics in objectivism? Um, that one, I'm maybe I would say, well, kind of building off the last thing I just said, maybe an expert on Rand's view of free will and on the philosophy of mind, because I've spent most time researching that, um, at least compared to other objectivists. Like probably very few objectivist intellectuals have spent the amount of time that I have researching Ayn Rand's view of the philosophy of mind. I wrote papers on that for a seminar I took at the Ayn Rand Institute some years ago. They had a graduate program, or people who were working on their doing graduate work and writing dissertations. And I wrote some papers on philosophy of minds, including the objectivist view of philosophy of minds. So yeah, that's a topic it gets a little time in a book in the objectivist literature, but not very much, I would say. There's a course by Harry Binswanger called The Metaphysics of Consciousness, which might be the most prominent source in the objectivist literature that discusses the philosophy of mind or metaphysics of consciousness. He's written some about it as well in his book, How We Know. Leonard Peikoff has a section on it in the first chapter of his book, Objectivism, the Philosophy of Ayn Rand. The very first chapter, it's talking about metaphysics, the basic nature of the world, consciousness, existence. Those very fundamental concepts. And there's a section in there where he discusses the mind-body problem. And of course, he also talks about it in lectures, some like the History of Philosophy series. I remember there's some discussion of philosophy of mind in connection with certain philosophers. Um, but as far as compared to something like ethics or politics or epistemology, I'd say the philosophy of mind gets relatively little attention in the objectivist literature. So maybe those two. Free will, maybe I would also say is a bit of an expert. I used to think about free will more when I first got into philosophy, like back in high school. I was like obsessed with free will. I would think about it so much, and for several years, I'm not sure exactly how long. That was my main interest in philosophy, and eventually, many years later, wrote a master's thesis on it. But in the last, I guess, since I've started this YouTube channel, I've spent more time thinking about the objectivist ethics. Um, there's here's another topic I just remembered: the definition of selfishness, in particular, the dictionary definition of selfishness, is something that maybe you could call me an expert on, or at least the objectivist view of the dictionary definition of selfishness. Um, I've so a little so the background is Ayn Rand makes this statement, and in her book, The Virtue of Selfishness, on what the dictionary definition of selfishness. And she says, quote, or no, the dictionary definition of selfishness is, quote, concern with one's own interests, unquote. I think I got that right, or at least very close to that. Um, and but if you actually look in a dictionary, it doesn't just say, typically, it won't just say concern with one's own interests. It'll say something like concern with one's own interests without regard for others or at the expense of others. So you might think, well, was she wrong then? Did she make a mistake in saying that the dictionary definition of selfishness is just concern with one's own interests? Full stop. You might think so. At least I think it's a reasonable question to ask. Um, and now there are debates on what exactly did she mean by calling this the dictionary definition of selfishness? Did she mean this is the sort of definition that a dictionary should have, not the definition dictionaries actually do have? That's been argued. I think Greg Salmieri, he makes that case in a companion to Ayn Rand. I don't remember exactly where, but there's a discussion of this issue. Like, what exactly did she mean by the dictionary definition of selfishness? And he argues that that was her view of what the dictionary should have, not what it actually does have. But I've heard other objectivist intellectuals say no, she was actually referring to real dictionary definitions, which I've researched extensively. I've looked in dozens of them, maybe around 50, in going back to like the Samuel Johnson's dictionary from the 1700s, I think. And in the vast majority of them, it's not what she gives. It has that other element attached to it, something like at the expense of others or without regard for others. There are like one or two I found that do have her definition, her sort of definition at least, but they're very much in the minority. So if you're going to appeal to the dictionary as grounds for thinking of, what is the correct definition, then I don't think that's a very successful argument. Now, some people have saying you say you have to formulate the definition by the proper rules of concept formation. It's not dictionaries aren't decisive as to what is the proper definition. And I think there's certainly something to be said for observing the proper rules of concept formation, which Ayn Rand discusses in her book, Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology. And it may be the case that dictionaries include definitions that don't observe the proper rules of concept formation. But I think part of the purpose, maybe the main purpose of dictionaries, or at least general usage dictionaries, maybe there are specialized dictionaries which have different principles, but if it's just a general dictionary, I think part of the purpose is to give people an idea of what is meant by this word word is used in general, that just like by someone on the street, for instance. It's not supposed to be partial to some particular philosophical point of view. So if someone just out in the world, out in the wild, uses this word selfish, and say you're a foreigner and you want to know, you come to the country and you want to know, well, what does this person mean when he says selfish? Well, it's probably going to be helpful to that person to see the sort of definition that generally appears in dictionaries, which is something like concern with your own interests without regard for others, because that's how the word is typically used. So if the dictionary is going to be useful, then you might think it should have this sort of what you might call a package deal definition, where it includes the element of concern with your own interests, but also the element of being concerned without regard for others, since that's what most people generally mean by it. So anyways, this is an issue which I've thought about and written about extensively, maybe most so on Harry Binswanger's forum, HB Letter. He's got it's behind a paywall, but you can get a free trial subscription to it. But there was a lot of discussion about this issue several years ago on his forum, hbletter.com. I also started a independent website called selfishnessproject.com, which is actually linked on my YouTube channel, and I talk about this issue some there. So if you haven't seen that, you might be interested to check that out. I haven't gone into the issue as extensively there on the selfishnessproject.com website as I did in the Harry Binswanger forum, and I might later, but I just haven't had time to transfer over all the content. I kind of saw the Harry Binswanger forum as a maybe first draft of my thoughts, and then I would kind of polish them up and refine them some, and then post those on my selfishnessproject.com site, which is not behind a paywall. As I said, it's linked on my YouTube channel. So, but I've been busy with other projects, and it just hasn't been a high priority to move all the content over and edit it up and polish it. So, but you can at least see some of my thoughts on that issue. So that's an issue where I would say like I might be an expert on that topic within objectivism. I mean, it's a very kind of niche topic, maybe obscure sort of topic. This one claim Ayn Rand makes in The Virtue of Selfishness, but it might have broader implications, like for how should we go about arguing for objectivism? What terminology should we use if we are going to use the term selfish? How should we argue for it? I would say we should not appeal to what the dictionary says as a means of justifying our usage of that word. And I have heard objectivist intellectuals sometimes, at least in one case, I heard someone say, if you look in the dictionary, you will see the sort of definition Ayn Rand gives, but that's not the case if you actually look there. So I would say it's a mistake to do that, to say that to appeal to actual dictionaries as justification for using the word in the way that Ayn Rand uses it. If you're going to use it the way Ayn Rand uses it, and maybe you should, you need to argue for that in the right way. And I think the right way would not include an appeal to dictionaries, even though it does appear in one or two that I found. It's by far in the minority. I've read other technical objectivist works, like the Ayn Rand Society, which is affiliated with the Ayn Rand Philosophical Association, it's a professional group for philosophers. There's a division of it that was founded by the Ayn Rand Society, I think back around 1990. And they have annual meetings, at least I don't know if they still do, but for many years they had meetings every year in conjunction with the APA sessions, the American Philosophical Association sessions. And there would be scholarly discussion at these meetings of issues related to objectivism and Ayn Rand. And um, some years after these started, some decades after they started, the a series of books based on these in-person meetings was published. So some of the talks that were given in these Ayn Rand Society meeting sessions were converted into articles or chapters in these books. Um, I guess sometimes they were edited, sometimes they were just pretty much verbatim what the original talk was. But they deal with a lot of technical issues in the philosophy. And I've read, I think, most of what's come out so far in those books. I think there have been 3 volumes so far, one on ethics, one on epistemology, and one on politics. And I read the ethics one and the politics one. I read part of the epistemology one. Um, Now, just reading these books doesn't make me an expert on those topics within objectivism, but I guess I have I mean I've read those books, so which is probably the maybe the most technical sort of material out there, um, at least uh, high quality technical material, I would say. So that informs some of my thinking about these topics. So that's a long answer to Evil Tiki's question. And I see there's some more chats, and so let me get back to the chat. I see Carlos Biendia has come back. I recognize you. Yeah, we talked. You went by the name Javier, if I recall correctly, on Zoom. And oh yes, I think you were the one who called yourself a classical libertarian, and we were debating. Well, I think what did we start on? We eventually were debating like whether it's appropriate for me to go on the Majority Report with Sam Cedar, this show that which I've called into many times, and I was saying when we were talking, I'm not sure I want to go back, because I thought Sam was seemed like he might be thinking it's okay to smear Ayn Rand, and I wasn't sure wanted to sanction someone like that by going on his show again. And then we got into a debate on whether it actually would be good to do that. And we also, what else? Oh, I think we were debating coercion before that. Like, what exactly does coercion mean? Um, so, yeah, maybe we can debate again today. Let me just quickly at least read through the other comments that have come in. And then if you want to jump on Zoom, we can do that. So, okay, so I just got up to got through Evil Tiki's comments about what I'm an expert in. And then Latent Prion says, "Oh, hey, I tried to ask you about professional intellectual work. If I'm trying to get my foot into the door as a pro-capitalist ideologue, what would you recommend?" Uh, okay. Um, I think that might be a big topic. Um, Maybe I'll come back to that. I guess what are you you're trying to get your foot in the door as a pro-capitalist ideologue. Like, well, I guess that could take different forms. So does that mean you want to be a public speaker, you want to write articles, you want to be a professor, work at a think tank, be an independent YouTuber, um, or are you, maybe you're not sure. So I guess in what kind of, I mean, intellectual work that's very broad in terms of the topics, like, okay, pro-capitalist ideologue. Um, I mean, you could. you could argue for like I guess in a way, you could take a specialty like Alex Epstein has done. He focuses on energy issues, um, or you could focus on like Wall Street, finance, healthcare. So you could pick out some narrow specialty and come at it from a pro-capitalist angle, or maybe you're interested in some more general kind of approach to defending capitalism. Um, oh, I see. You say you're already writing a book that's 85% complete. Um, I'm reading these out of order. You say, I want to write books, do debates, write policy analysis on current issues, do YouTube, work at a think tank, etc. All of the above. Anyone would be a great first step. Um, okay, all of the above. I guess maybe YouTube. I don't know if you have if you do anything on YouTube. I don't know if you put out videos. Maybe that's a good place to start. It's a I guess relatively easy way to start in that there's no one holding you back from doing it. You don't need like a publisher. Like, well, I guess even with a book, you could self-publish it. Um, I don't know if that's something you would be open to, but um, I guess it's more work to write a book than it is to just uh, say some things on your YouTube channel, which you might see as a kind of draft, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be your final thoughts on some issue, but you could just test some stuff out, create a channel, have some discussions. I don't know if you want to just, so there's different ways you could do it. You could do it like I do it, or you have discussions and debates with people, or it can just be kind of a platform for you to express your own thoughts. You could just write monologues and then put them out there on YouTube and then see what kind of feedback you get. Um, so I guess you could try both and find out what you enjoy more. And then maybe after you refine your ideas, you could try to publish them. I get, well, you say you're already working on a book, so um, anyways, there's many different ways to go about doing this, and I wouldn't say I necessarily have I don't think there's necessarily one right perfect way to do it. There's so much to consider. Uh, Let me see what else he has. Uh, oh, Evil Tiki says, "Gotcha. Thanks for the answer. You're welcome." And then Evil Tiki says, "Oh, that's cool. I majored in cognitive science in college, so philosophy of mind is a very interesting topic for me." Okay. Um, Carlos Biendia says, "I want to debate again." I guess if you want to debate, click on the Zoom link. Did I pin the link? I think I didn't pin the link. It's the very first message in the chat, but I just pinned it, so it's not going to get lost. So if you want to debate, then click that link that I pinned at the top of the chat. Unless you mean you want to just debate in text here. But if you want to call in and debate, click that link. Okay. Latent Prion says, it's not that deep. I guess you're referring to what Ayn Rand meant by selfishness, because then you say, she just literally used the wrong word. She did this with egotism versus egoism in the Fountainhead. She just used the wrong word. Okay, unquote from Latent Prion. Yeah, there is some discussion of egotism versus egoism. She says that, um, I guess based on what she found in some dictionary, she used the word egotism, but I guess later she uh, thought that that word didn't have quite the meaning that she was intending, but she didn't want to change it. She wanted to keep the original word. Um, maybe just I don't remember exactly what she says about that, but she at least explains why she used that word egotism instead of egoism in the Fountainhead. And I guess if she were doing it again from scratch, she would change it to egoism, but she didn't want to. She didn't want to do it again from scratch. She just wanted to keep it as it originally was. And there was also, I think that she cites there's some religious illusions. I think she uses, what is it, the from the lowest something to the highest religious abstraction. Um, I think the phrase might have been something like that from one of the speeches in the Fountainhead. And I guess implicit in a phrase like that was some kind of, maybe endorsement is too strong a word, or sanction is too strong a word for of religion, but I guess it somehow portrayed religion more positively than she later thought it deserved to be portrayed. So maybe that's another thing, which if she were rewriting it from scratch, she would have changed that. But again, she said she just wanted to keep it. Um, she didn't want to change, like write a new edition, but she at least thought it was worth addressing that in the preface to the 25th anniversary edition. I think that's where it was that she talked about these issues. Um, okay. Oh, Latent Prion says, I'm not reading these in order. This is his chat from 2:41 p.m. Pacific. Um, he says, I wasn't able to find the Ayn Rand Philosophical Association. No, it's there's two groups. So one is the American Philosophical Association. That's the APA, which is just a group for professional philosophers. Generally, has nothing in particular to do with Ayn Rand. APA, American Philosophical Association. Now, there's a subgroup within that called the Ayn Rand Society, ARS, and that's affiliated with the APA. Um, I don't know if it's exactly right to call it a subgroup, but I guess people who are members of the APA are the ones who founded the ARS. And I don't think you have to be a professional philosopher to be a member of the Ayn Rand Society. Like I think if you pay dues every year, then you can get copies of the papers that are discussed at their meetings. But maybe to be an officer, like a president or something of the Ayn Rand Society, you would have to be a professional philosopher. Um, so that's a subgroup affiliated with the Professional Philosophical Association. So there's APA and then there's the ARS. So if you look up each of those separately, I'm sure you'll find websites for them. Um, so hopefully that clears up that point. And then Latent Prion just came in and says, "Hey, can I call in to talk about publishing papers?" Um, okay. Let's see, is that you, Lee? Okay, yeah, I think it was, yeah, Lee Gang Jin. That was the name that you had last time, if I remember right. Sometimes people have a different screen name on Zoom than they have on their YouTube page. So I think Lee must be Latent Prion. Um, yeah, I will let you. Oh, wait a minute. I'm getting confused now. Carlos Biendia. I think that was Javier. Um, Leighton Prion says, "Who says it's me?" Yeah, maybe somebody else. Now, I think, yeah, Leighton Prion is, yeah, what if it's just a coincidence, he says. I guess it's possible. Very unlikely, though. Yeah, so Leighton Prion is Lee, and then Carlos Biendia is Javier. Although he sounds British, I think. but he said he was in was it Jamaica? Well, I guess was it the what? I guess the British they Jamaica was a colony of the British, wasn't it? So, but he has Hispanic sounding screen names, but a British sounding accent. Uh, so I got to make a like I might have to like make a chart to keep all these people straight. Anyways, okay. Yeah, so right now Latent Prion, aka Lee, is the only one trying to call in, and I'm gonna take his call. No, Latent Prion. You say I sound British, mate? No, I think it's Carlos Bienda, aka Javier, who sounds British. Or no, gosh, I'm getting confused. It doesn't matter. Um, I'm gonna take the call from Lee in Mitz. All right. I have just admitted you, Lee. Can you hear me? I cannot hear you. Looks like you're not muted. I don't know if you have your.
Hello, can you
Oh,
hear
now I
me?
hear you. Yeah, now I hear you.
Right. Yeah, thank you so much for taking my call, Don. I appreciate your time.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. So I guess I have this situation where I have a bunch of things I want to publish. I have a book, and I have a preprint paper that I've already written, which I have to revise in different ways. But I intend to publish papers on a bunch of subjects: ethics, epistemology, metaphysics, and stuff. And I don't know where to publish them because I never did formal research, right? And another problem I have is I have a bunch, I can write a bunch of the theory that I want to talk about, but I need to reach out to other people to get like the literary review section and the getting like relevant citations and references. Because I don't really read other people. I have my own original ideas, so to speak. So just kind of I just write what I think, and then I also there's this tradition in research where you have to cite other people. So I just find myself kind of blocked in this place where okay, I've written this thing, and now I have to find ways to include citations and references to other people. And I have this situation where I have this dual problem where I want to find people to reach out to who will be interested in like publishing on the various topics I'm publishing on, and then I also don't know which journals and stuff to publish in.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm not a very published person myself, so there might be people who know much more than I do about this and who could give you better advice. I published one article in a journal, which is the Objective Standard. That's the name of the journal. You might have heard of it many years ago, 2011. I think the spring issue of 2011 is when it came out. It was an article called A Symphony of History, Will Durant's The Story of Civilization. So this is it's kind of like a book review, but it was published as an article. And that's my only publication. So I don't have a lot of experience like publishing books or articles and going through the process of getting endorsements. I did endorse one book myself, someone else's book, Brian Simpson. He's economics professor, and I gave his book an endorsement. But as far as getting endorsements on my own books, I have no books that I've uh, published. Just that one article. I published, I guess, I don't know if you want to count my dissertation. I mean, I think you can get that through ProQuest. I think that's the name of the dissertation database, although part of it's behind a paywall, I think, in my master's thesis, but they're not like normal books that you would publish. So, again, there might be people far better than I to talk with about this, but maybe I can give you a little feedback. So you said you're working on a book and you also have articles and you're writing about various topics in philosophy, ethics, epistemology, politics, and you are just putting out your own thoughts, but you think you need to engage more with others, so you're looking for ways to include citations. and you want to get endorsements for your work. Is that accurate as to what you were saying?
Well, I unless I'm don't understand something, unless I'm wrong. What I understand is that in order to publish a paper, if I send it into the journal and I do not have relevant citations, I will be told that I need to get relevant citations. For that reason, I want to, get into contact with people who know the extant literature enough to be able to, edit my work and add citations, so to speak. It's basically mostly completed work that I have, and I just want people who have a knowledge of the extant literature to add citations and so on, something like that, to add, linkage to extant work.
Okay.
So, it's not really endorsements, but I don't mind if I get endorsements, but that's not what I'm targeting. I'm just targeting people to add, you know, um, linkage.
Yeah. I'm not sure that's a good strategy. I mean, it should be, ideally, it would be organic. Like it wouldn't be a separate step to at the end where you feel you need to have citations, and so you search around for ways to link your work up with other people's work. I mean, I think ideally, in the course of working on something, you would kind of naturally be coming up with citations. Now, it could be that the work requires very few, if any, citations. Like I think it's rare, but sometimes it does happen that's in philosophy an article is published without any citations. Um, and there are certain journals which I think might be more open to those sorts of articles that have like few, if any, citations. But for the most part, I think that's very rare. So I don't know what if you have your eye on any particular journals, but if you do, I guess you could just look at some of the articles that are published in that journal and see, like, do they all have tons of citations, or are there any who have very few or maybe even no citations? Um, but I guess I would just I would try to make it natural and not artificial. Um, so now I guess if you can avoid just putting in citations for the sake of citations, I would do that. If you think you really need them, then uh, yeah, I guess first make that decision. Like, do you really need them? And I guess to decide that, take a look at the journals that you're considering publishing in and see, or you could also just write to the journal editors and say, hey, I've got some original ideas and I don't have any citations. Is that going to be a problem? And just see how they reply. And maybe in his reply, if you indicate um, what your topic is, he or she will say, "Oh, actually, I know some people have written on that. You might want to check this article out," and that will give you some leads as to what you could actually cite. So maybe that's a good idea. Just try to get in touch with whoever runs the journal, and then they could give you some feedback. So, so there's some initial thoughts.
Um, so you don't intend to do, publications and stuff like that. I guess you're just trying to go into the kind of the YouTube or the social media type of sort of track of influence, I guess.
Well, I don't have plans right now to do long form written content like books or articles. That's not to say I will never do those. Maybe in the future I will, but right now I'm most interested in just working on my social media presence. So I do tiny written comments like in Facebook or Twitter, but or X, but I'm not doing long form written content these days. I'm doing lots of reading. So behind the scenes, when I'm not on YouTube, a lot of what I'm doing is I'm learning history because I find that if I have a good knowledge of history, that will make me much more informed about the sort of topics that I like to talk about on my YouTube channel. But yeah, there's very little writing that I'm doing. Again, like excluding things like social media comments. Uh, and there's really no long form writing I'm working on because I'm just most interested in my social media YouTube video ventures these days. Um, And again, that might change in the future, but that's my focus right now. Did that answer your question?
Absolutely. I really appreciate the tip to go and, it seems obvious, but just kind of email somebody at the journal and ask. I guess I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it might be at least a good place to start. And maybe when you do that, you'll get some more ideas. As I said, maybe that person will have some leads. Also, people sometimes self-publish. I don't know if you have any interest in doing that, but you can publish your book on Amazon just by yourself. You don't need anybody's endorsement to do that or anybody's approval. There's no gatekeepers. So, there might be a presumption that something is um, more likely to be high quality if it goes through an editorial review or a peer review kind of process than if you just self-publish. I guess that's not necessarily the case, but I think people have different views on that. Like Harry Binswanger, he self-published his book, How We Know, um, and I think that's a good book. But you could also go through peer review. So you might want to, if you haven't already thought about that, self-publishing, you might want to at least consider that. And if I guess if you do go that route, then you're going to have more flexibility on things like citations. Like obviously, there's not going to be any requirements. You're going to cite as many people as you want to. So you could consider that route.
All right. Yeah. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Is there some other topic you think you
Okay,
would
sure.
like?
Thanks for calling.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Bye bye. All right. Nice to have a caller. I see we got another person who says he'd like to call in. Sacnam B. I don't recognize that name. Maybe you are new. So I guess I'll find out. If you want to, let's see, did you show, do you want to say in the chat what you'd like to call in about? Sacnam B? Maybe give me some initial idea. Um, I don't know if he's still here. Well, there's a delay on my voice for about 15, 20 seconds. So maybe he needs 15, 20 seconds before he hears my question. Friend Harper is back. He says, hello again. What do you think about having a segment part of your show that involves chewing a concept? I might be open to that. I did that a little bit today with the concept of meritocracy. I don't know if you were on for that part of it, but this is a concept which has come up in previous of my live streams, and I discussed that a little bit and discussed it again today because someone who was on one of those previous live streams when I first talked about it, I think he had made a comment in the chat about it, so I talked about it a little more. But I don't know if I want to make it a fixed part of my live stream where it's something that people will expect to always be there, as opposed to just having an impromptu segments um, where if it comes up, then I'll chew it. Um, I guess I like the flexibility of just having impromptu live streams because it takes time to prepare for these, and I have various projects that I'm working on, and I have to think about if I'm going to invest time in um, preparing to talk about some topic on the live stream, then that time is going to have to come out of some other project I have, like learning history, and I have to decide, is that worth it? Now, maybe you don't mean this a topic that I prepare for in advance. Maybe you just mean some topic I kind of chew on the spot off the top of my head. Maybe I guess I'm kind of interested in engaging with topics that you all are interested in. So if there's a particular concept that you want to chew, um, and just by the way, for anyone who isn't familiar with this metaphor of chewing, Ayn Rand used this metaphor um, for objectivism, like chewing objectivism or some concepts within objectivism, and it's kind of stuck as part of the objectivist lingo. So when we say chew a concept, it's like try to break it down into its parts, understand where does this concept come from, get clear on its meaning, um, just kind of look at it from different angles to get a better understanding of some concept, like whether it's coercion, which I've talked about many times in the past, or meritocracy, freedom. These are all concepts which could be chewed, so to speak, break it down to make it more easily digestible so you understand it better. Um, so I guess if there's a concept that in particular that you want to chew or propose for chewing, then feel free to throw it out there and maybe I'll chew on it. Got some more coming in from Finn Harper. He says, like finding the reference in reality, contrasting it from similar concepts, identifying the unit measurements and stuff like that. Not a topic, more like a word that is held vaguely in the culture, like freedom or value in words like that. I guess my initial thought is just to do it on an impromptu, kind of informal basis. Um, so I'm certainly open to doing that, but I guess I could come up with some topic that I myself am wrestling with at the time. Um, or if there's one that you're particularly interested in, um, propose that. Like just put it in the chat and then maybe I'll talk about that some. All right. It doesn't look like Sacnam B has called in. Oh, I see he has deleted his message, so maybe he changed his mind. Um, so maybe now's a good time to chew on a concept since we don't have anyone calling in. Uh, um, let me, I'm gonna check my. Oh, I see we got up to 7 likes. That's great. I didn't even think to put out a call for likes, but we already got up to 7 likes. Yeah, if you like the stream, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button. Help the algorithm, help me, help grow the channel, and definitely always appreciate subscribers, new subscribers. So, oh, I just got a new subscriber. That's great. Thanks for subscribing. Um, very good. Um, so I don't know if you want to throw a concept in the chat, friend Harper, but feel free to do that. Or if anyone else wants to, or if anyone else has any other topic they're interested in discussing, feel free to propose it in the chat or come on, click that if you want to do a call, click the Zoom link that I have pinned in the top of the chat. I'm going to need to grab my water. Where's my water? Uh, Bern Harper says, he's contemplating something. See how many oh nice. We got up to 29 people dropped by. Not all at the same time, but my YouTube analytics, which I can see on my phone here, shows that in the 2 p.m. Pacific hour, 29 people clicked on the link to this stream. That's great. I think that might be the highest it's ever been for a live stream. Okay, it's now 3:13 Pacific time, And I'll say, let's see, how long am I going to go? I don't usually have a set time, but and it depends on the engagement I get as to how long I'm on. But I'll be here at least until 3:30 Pacific, so that would be about another 15 minutes. But maybe significantly longer, depending on what kind of engagement. I see that Sacnam just came back into the chat and says, "Hey, I'm driving, but willing to call." Okay, um, feel free to do that. Oh, friend Harper says, "How about Hero?" Okay, that's so maybe that's a comment I can chew. I'm also interested in what drives your interest in that particular concept. If there is something, like, did that just randomly pop into your head, or is that something you've been thinking about and there's something about it that you're not clear about, and that's why it's on your minds? I'd be interested to know the motivation, and that can, I guess, shape the kind of chewing that goes on. Oh, I see. Regula 77R has entered the waiting room. I guess that's the person who shows up as Sacnam B on the chat. Um, but I see there's. Let me just read one last comment from friend Harper, and then I'll let him into the call. So friend Harper says, "My issue is that I chew on concepts all the time, so I don't have any specific ones for you. But I think the practice isn't as common as it should be, and I want people to have the skill." Okay. Yeah, maybe that would be a good skill for people to develop. Me too. Um, well, I mean, we all, I guess you could have a certain level of skill, but by doing it more, you could get better at it. I guess it's good to take a concept which you're not clear on, or maybe you could take two concepts simultaneously and like one that you're clear on and one that you're not clear on, and you then use those as contrast and see like, well, why is it that I understand this one better than this other one? And maybe you could kind of use that comparison to help you get more clarity on the one that you're less clear on. Friend Harper says, so they need to see a philosopher do it and maybe teach it explicitly. Yeah, maybe I could provide a helpful model there. Now, I don't claim to be an expert on chewing concepts. I guess it's something I do from time to time, but I haven't given a course on it or written about it. Um, there might be people who have done that. Like in OPAR, Objectivism, the Philosophy of Ayn Rand, there's a section on reduction. Leonard Peikoff uses the concept friend, and he reduces that concept. That's also a technical term in Objectivism, reduction. I mean, it can have different meanings in different contexts, but within Objectivism, there's an epistemological sense to that, which maybe I can discuss another time. Um, but I guess part of what he's doing there is he's chewing the concept of friend or friendship. Oh, which actually maybe is particularly interesting to you because friend is part of your username. And I remember you said before that you're interested in the concept of friendship, and that's why you included the term friend in your screen name. Okay, so what I'm going to do is make a note of the concept hero in I have a Google Doc where I make some notes on things I might discuss, and I think this one is maybe a good topic for another live stream. Um, I guess if we didn't have a caller right now, maybe I'd chew it right now, but I think I want to give priority right now to the caller. So I'm just going to put this down for a future show. Chew hero for friend Harper. Okay. Or maybe if we have time after this call, I can do some more in this live stream. I also need to get a bite to eat because I'm getting hungry. Maybe I won't leave. I'll just turn my camera and mic off for a minute. I don't want to eat on camera least not right now. But I'll still be here. Maybe while this person who calls in is talking, I can get a bite to eat. So let me let that person into the call. Okay, admit. All right. Hello, Regula77R. Welcome to the call.
Hello.
Hi,
Thanks for having me.
you're welcome. So you're the person who is going by Sacnam B in the chat?
Yes, that's me.
Okay, just like to make sure I got everything straight. Okay, so you wanted to call in, and I forget, did you say there's a particular topic you're interested in discussing?
I didn't say anything in particular, but if you wanted to talk about, say, epistemology, I'm willing to talk about epistemology. I'm not really like a philosophy student, as per se. I've read a decent amount of Plato and some good works on Plato from like, Vlastos and whatnot. And I usually have more of a time reading stuff like economics because I'm an economics student. But for Plato, I've read distinct things about metaphysics, epistemology, and I've read the Church Fathers and stuff like St. Augustine. So I was just wondering what your thoughts on epistemology and justification are as per Ayn Rand. I'm not really too sure about what Ayn Rand really means. So I just wanted to hear what you thought about that.
Okay. Uh, Before I say anything about that, since I need to get a bite to eat because I'm pretty hungry right now, let me just ask you a question, and then I'm going to turn off my camera while you talk and my mic, and then I'll come back in a minute. So my question for you is, I'm curious to get to know people a little bit who are new to my live stream and who I haven't seen before. So I haven't seen you before. So one question I have for you is, when did you come across my channel, and how did you come across it? Like, was it recommended on YouTube, or did you find it some other way? And I guess just what is your background as it relates to, it sounded like maybe you're a student. You said you were studying economics. So like, are you in university? Have you read Ayn Rand before? If so, like, what's the extent? Do you read your fiction or nonfiction or what? So in general, just to keep it simple, could you just introduce yourself a bit to my audience? And then I'm going to turn my camera off right now for about a minute while you talk. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Uh, sure. I don't really want to say my name just for
Okay.
privacy reasons, but
Yeah, that's fine.
I am a student. I've studied both political science, economics, and I have a thing in math because economics is pretty heavily dealing in math, so I'm studying mostly math these days. But as per what I've read a lot of Dostoevsky. I don't know if you would consider him a philosopher as per se, but I would say the Brothers Karamazov is a pretty heavily, enriched book for philosophy. I would say lots of themes there that I think occur in Nietzsche's latest works. I've read some of Nietzsche. I know a little bit about everything, but not so much Rand for some reason. I'm pretty good with like the continental philosophers like Kant. I'm also good with things like Hume. Not good, but like I just know the understandings of what Hume meant by his guillotine and whatnot. As per mostly what I know the best, I'd probably say Plato. A lot of Plato's understandings of the metaphysics of, the forms and whatnot are pretty important when you do things like understanding church history, church fathers, uh, you know, why there's issues within St. Augustine's works versus, say, St. Basil's. That's mostly what I've been really up to when it comes to reading. When it comes to like enjoyment, I guess you could say I enjoy Russian literature as a whole. I don't think all of it is philosophical, but I would consider Dostoevsky to be quite philosophically heavy. I don't know if you've read Brothers Karamazov or The Idiot. The Idiot's less so, but Brothers Karamazov, I'd say, is very philosophically written. There's other things I've written about here and there, but overall, I'm mostly into math now because of my requirements. But after a year or so of reading through Plato, reading through some of the descriptions of metaphysics, and having a basic understanding of Aristotelianism, Thomism, very basic. I wouldn't say I'm like an expert or anything. That's why I'm here to talk to you. Uh, I just wonder, justification and epistemology, because I mostly just see that a lot of worldviews and the modern world, no matter like if they're old or not, have some sort of epistemic justification for as to why they believe in the things they do. What do they mean by true and false statements? And I find lots of errors in modern day understandings like dialectical materialism and Marxism. I found to be very incompatible when I looked at it through an epistemic lens. So I was just curious what you thought of, epistemology or metaphysics, if you want to go there. But I'm not really like an expert on anything. I'm a pretty young guy. So uh, I'm just willing to hear your opinion more so than anything. And then if I have something specific to say, I'll let you know. But honestly, I'm just here to hear you out. And yeah, I'm mostly in political philosophy as well. But that's
Okay.
really all. I don't really know what else to say for that.
Okay. No, that's good. That's good. That gives me some sense of your background. I do have a few more things that I'm curious about. Maybe you could just say briefly. So are you a college student right now?
Yeah, but it's a little weird because I got like, I'm split between a couple roles, right? But I'm applying for a PhD pretty soon. So towards like
Mi-
my latter half of college, I'd say.
Okay. Oh, what would you be applying for a PhD in what field?
Theoretical economics, maybe more so in like DSGE modeling and macro or micro, more like GET modeling. Those are just general ideas in macro and micro, but I wanted to really get into like the heart of the math behind it. So more of the mathematical foundations, and then there's a lot of philosophical pre-assumptions done in these types of modelings. And honestly, a lot of stochastic behavior is kind of interesting as well, but I haven't really touched that yet. I'm still pretty new to that type of stuff, but we'll see on that. But yeah, a lot of mostly just like theoretical slash like mathematical economics is what I'm planning. But
Oh,
we'll see in a year what I think.
okay. Okay. And as for Ayn Rand, have you read any Ayn Rand before?
Not really. What I do know about her is a summary from her biggest work. I From Atlas Shrugged. I know a friend who read it. I know a friend who's listening to it on ebook. I know like the general premise of Ayn Rand's philosophy, but I wouldn't consider myself very well read on Ayn Rand like I do say on Plato or Dostoevsky. But yeah, that's all.
Okay. And how did you hear about me or come across my channel?
Oh, I forgot to answer that. Yeah. You literally got recommended to me right before I got in my car, and now I'm like a minute away from my destination, which kind of sucks. But
Oh,
yeah.
what do you mind saying what video recommended me?
This live stream itself was, I don't know what video recommends you, but I do listen to a lot of critiques of Thomism, scholasticism, and foundationalist epistemology. And sometimes I listen to things on like the criteria of justification by faith alone and Protestant worldviews and why I disagree with them. And sometimes I
Hmm.
get videos on that. So you probably came up from that, but I don't remember because I was in a haze on the way here. So
Huh,
don't quote
okay.
me on that.
So okay, so it's very new. It was just today that some other video recommended this video after you watched that video. Okay. Interesting. Um, and then it sounds like you've got some interests in epistemology, Plato, Dostoevsky, justification. Um, all right. So you said you only have a minute. I guess I can say some
Uh,
things uh, after you hang up, or I don't know how long you want to stick around for.
I can stay
Or
for about 5 more minutes and then
okay.
I'll probably go grab something for, I'm just getting some food. And then after that, I'll come back and then, it will take me like 20 minutes. I don't know if you'll be around after 20 minutes though. So don't, if you have to leave, that's okay. But I'll give you like 5 minutes now. And maybe next live stream, we'll have a more detailed conversation.
Okay, yeah. What I've been doing recently is doing one live stream on the weekends, like Saturday or Sunday, and then one in the middle of the week, like today. So my next one, I think, will probably be this coming weekend. And if you subscribe to my channel, you'll get a notification for when I go live. if you hit that bell. So, but anyways, yeah, you can try to catch me on a future live stream and we can have more time. Um, but for right now, just in these last few minutes while you're here, I guess, is there one particular comments or concept or topic that you're most interested in um, getting my take on?
Sure, I wanted to hear what you had to say about just standard epistemology, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know what Ayn Rand's like. I know there's like certain like types of epistemology, right? You would consider Thomism to be a classical foundationalist position. You know, orthodoxy nowadays takes a transcendental argument for its position on epistemology. That's what I subscribe to. I take the transcendental argument. And I'm not sure where Ayn Rand comes from on all this. I don't know what her basis for like knowledge would be. I guess that's the
Hmm.
proper way to say it. Like, if you were to, let's just start by making a claim, I guess. What is like a famous claim she would make about morals that would help me get it to understanding her epistemology?
A famous claim about morals. Well, I guess one would be that morality requires free will. So if we're determined, if everything that happens by necessity, then there is no such thing as morality. It pulls the rug out from under morality. To be moral or immoral presupposes that there is free will or choice, to use another term. So that would be one claim she makes about morality. And, there's many others, of course, but I don't know if that's the sort of thing you were looking for. That's
That's
one
good.
that
That
came.
gives like a metaphysical assumption, right? It gives the assumption of, I guess you could, I mean, it's not defined on its own what free will really means, because there's some people who like to say that there's free will despite being a deterministic worldview. There's some
Hmm.
people like in the transcendental position, the orthodox position, we hold secondary causation. I don't know if you know what that is, secondary causation, but like causal as there's like secondary causal agents that are able to perform free wills because they have their own instantiation of person compared to like the nature of human nature being also entitled to free will by God's grace. That's what I would hold. So I guess if she holds free will, she's not, at least axiomatically, she's not holding to some sort of like deterministic worldview without like being in contradiction, which is something a lot of materialists will do. They'll be like, yeah, we have free will, but the world is determined either way, which is like the, what do you call it? I forgot, the compatibilist approach. But okay, that gives me like some avenue, more like a normal claim on like what is good, or like a what is F type of claim that would come out of, say, Plato.
What is F? Yeah, it does sound like I'm getting uh, the vibe that you've been studying some academic philosophy based on some of the terminology you're using. So I guess I remember coming across this long ago, I think as an undergrad, like where F is used to just stand for some concept or some universal or abstract term. Um, so, I've noticed you use some other terms in this discussion so far, like foundationalism and transcendentalism, which are also technical philosophical terms, which don't always have a clear application in objectivism, or objectivism has its own sort of terminology, and it frames issues in terms of certain concepts and not others. I think many concepts that you come across in academic literature, um, you're not going to find it all in objectivism. And actually, objectivism might argue that there's something flawed with these terms. They might be called package deals or anti-concepts, or maybe not. Maybe they're okay, but I just wouldn't take for granted that because there's some concept which exists in academic jargon that it's a valid concept. This actually maybe connects to the issue of chewing concepts, which came up in the chat a little bit ago when I was talking with friend Harper. Um, if we chewed on some of these concepts, like transcendentalism or like secondary causal agent or whatever, or God, I think God came up. We might find that these are there's some problem with these concepts and they shouldn't be used And if we think in terms of them, it's going to invalidate the thought processes in terms that are where these concepts appear. So, anyways, that's all kind of preliminary stage setting concepts. Stage setting um, discussion points. We haven't really, I haven't gotten into, what is Ayn Rand's view of this or that. I'm just kind of putting up a notice that I'm hearing lots of terminology that I'm somewhat wary of be because I'm not very familiar with some of the terms you've used, and I don't want to just immediately take them on board. I might have to translate them into some other kind of terms first in order to process them and make sense of them, which is fine. I mean, that's part of the challenge of philosophy is you have someone who's coming at you randomly who's never heard of me until today. He just saw my video pop up. And you've got a very different background and context. And for us to have a productive conversation, we're going to have to find some way to bridge your way of coming at the world and then my way of coming at the world. And then hopefully, given enough time, we could be on the same page about certain things and at least have a fruitful discussion. I don't know if we'll have time today to get to that stage, but I guess that would be maybe the first step in having a conversation is just making sure we're on the same page about some things. But I know it's already been a few minutes, and you said you had to go. So, do you want to hop off now, or do you want to stick around for longer and say anything else before you go?
I just wanted to so you were saying something about the fact that the terms as definitions might have an impact on the way we were able to see the concepts. Is that correct, or am I misinterpreting you there?
Well, yeah, the way you understand terms is going to have many implications. Like if you understand free will in a way that's compatible with determinism, then that's going to impact something like whether you think well, I don't know. Maybe I'm not sure how that would impact the idea that I mentioned before that you need to have free will in order to have morality. I guess it would impact if you thought, well, if you spell that out more, what that means, the reason you need free will for morality is because if you didn't have free will, you would be determined. Well, a compatibilist is going to jump up and say, well, no, it doesn't matter if you're determined. Um, that's still compatible with morality. I'm not sure I've been totally clear there, but anyways, I do think you need to be clear about the meaning of concepts, and in order to like, I don't think certain lines of thought are going to make sense unless uh, you've already taken on board certain understandings of certain concepts. Um,
Sure.
Now, maybe,
That
oh,
would,
go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say that's just avoiding some things like the word concept fallacy, which I would agree to. I thought you were implying that definitions have im like like ch- of can change the perception of thought itself, which is I thought that was I thought that's what you meant, but that's not what you mean, so I take that back. Okay, if we were just trying to avoid simplification and we want nuance and preventing like word concept fallacies, that's okay. I guess I'll leave on this. I guess you could take this thought and see where it goes in the live stream. I do have to go soon, so I'll end on this one. It'll take like a minute to explain it.
Okay.
Things like I don't know. So I'm gonna tell you what the transcendental argument is, I guess, and then if you want to critique it, I'll come back in the live. If it's gonna stay up, I'll come back, watch it over, see
Do
what
you
you
mean
said, and next time
Kant's
you're live.
transcendental argument or something else?
No, so I understand what Kant says about transcendental points and arguments, but we're making a little bit of a different argument. This one actually presupposes the Trinitarian God, but that's the obvious goal of it. But even before I get to that point, I can say things like, you know, we can talk about the incoherence of worldviews that rely on something like sense data, or ideas like if your perception of things is based off of like causal events, like the traditional Catholics do, they'll have issues explaining things like, their arguments for God are based off things like causality. And Hume in his Guillotine shows that this is, a non sequitur, that you can say that you can see two different events happen and try to act like they're causally related, but that doesn't imply that there's a first mover God that presupposes all of that. So I was gonna ask you and maybe chew on this later, if Rand makes any sort of moral claims about the world, be it claims about free will, about nature of human will, or about what is good and what is evil. I'm not even saying that in the what is F perspective, but like if she makes any sort of moral claim about an action, as per se, or any sort of claim about ought ought statements.
Hmm.
I wanted to, I guess you could chew on what topic, I mean, how you would explain these situations from like a justification point of view. So like if you were to say like, I think free will is a necessary condition to, morality, then I would ask you what your justification for free will would be, like knowing it's true, or forgetting even knowing it's true. Like say time itself, like what's your justification for time's existence or causality's existence, without trying to run into something like Hume's guillotine or Kant's like lack of certainty of what the natural world actually is, or things like that. I don't know how Rand goes about those things, because the orthodox position is basically you have these metaphysical principles like space, time, being itself, like knowing your own being. You cannot like prove your own being. Like the reason why something like what's it called? Cogito sum, like the bro, I forgot what's his name.
Descartes.
The Descartes. Yeah, the reason why Descartes is like flawed is because he presupposes things like time and thought and language to be able to make his arguments. But those things like time, thought, language, these are also independent concepts that all weave into each other, but don't have a justification on their own. So all of those types of I mean, events like metaphysical properties like time, being, math itself, like truth statements, knowledge being a thing, knowledge being communicatable, communication itself. These are all these all presuppose a God that would create them and interact with them at the same time. So I don't know if you're familiar with things like Plato's arguments with the one and the many, like Heraclitean flux versus oneness. So the triune God would be the only one that could, bridge the gap between oneness and multiplicity, which you can see in the monarchical definition of the Trinity. That's a bit, beyond this conversation. But like just in terms of Rand, maybe questions about like can she grasp oneness versus multiplicity, or like Azot distinctions and things like that. And if she can, that would be pretty cool to learn about that, because I haven't found a coherent worldview based off of like foundationalist epistemology or like sense-based epistemology that can. If that's possible, that would be pretty interesting. But that's all I have to really say for the moment. I'll come back. I've subscribed to you. I'll see when you go live next time, and we can have a more in-depth discussion by then. I'll have more citations. I'm literally on the road, so I'm
Okay.
just like speaking.
Yeah, be
But
safe.
it was nice to meet you, Doctor. Dr. Norton, right?
Yeah. You can call me Dan though.
All right, Dan. It's nice to meet you. I like to engage with a lot of professors in my university as well with discussions like these. Like I was talking to some Darwinian professor, and I kind of trapped him on his ought distinction, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that kind of makes sense." And I didn't trap him. He knew it, but he was like, "Yeah, I always have a difficulty explaining moral claims off of it." So there was some discussion on things like that. But I'm just curious, and I've always wanted to see like my worldview critiqued. So that's really all. I'll come back later when if this live is still like available to be like rewatched
Hmm.
on its own as a video, and just like see what you have to say about. I don't know if you've written any of this down, but if you want to search up tag, you can search up tag transcendental argument for God. You can search up uh things about I mean Izzat distinction and Hume. I think you know about Hume. You're a professor, but I don't doubt your intelligence on that. You're probably way better than me at that. But just these basic arguments, and I'll come back and review them. But thank you for your
Okay.
time.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for your call.
No problem. Thank you, man.
Yep. Bye-bye. Okay. S- Wow, he raised a lot of issues. Uh, So I thought maybe what I would do is just talk about one or two things for a little bit, and then if he wants to come back in a future live stream, we can discuss it some more. So I see you're in the waiting room, friend Harper, and I plan to bring you in after I say a few things about that last call. And by the way, I do plan to keep this live stream up. So you what was his name? He had a different name in the chat than was in the oh yeah, Sacnam B. That was the name in the YouTube chat. So Sacnam, uh, I'm going to use that name since I don't remember the other one. Yeah, I do plan to keep the live stream up at the same URL. So you should just be able to go back to the same link that you saw originally, and you'll hear these comments. Uh, okay, so one of the very many things you brought up was the issue of God. So I don't know, I'm not sure if you're religious, but it sounded like you might be since you've used the term God and you were referencing some things you had read by, uh, I guess, Augustinians or the Thomists. So it sounds like you might be coming from a religious kind of background. So Ayn Rand is an atheist. She's not religious. She only acknowledges reason as a means to knowledge, not faith. So that that might be a fundamental distinction between her worldview and the one that you hold. I don't know if you would say that you accept things on faith, but the way I understand the concept of faith is that it means believing something without evidence. So if you take something on faith, that means you're not basing your view on evidence. Now, evidence can take different forms. It could be sensory evidence, like the evidence of your five senses, sight, sound, and so on. But there's also the evidence of reason. Like, how does Einstein figure out that E equals mc squared, right? You can't just see that with one of your senses. That's something which you have to use your rational minds to figure out. This is something that a faculty of reason, which is unique to human beings. Other species, dogs, cats, mice, fish, they don't have this cognitive ability which humans distinctively have, and which enables humans uniquely to discover very abstract knowledge like E equals mc squared, or how to create technology like Zoom, which allows us to have a conversation across hundreds of miles or thousands of miles. So that's one point I wanted to make, just a kind of general orienting thing to get us on the same page, or at least see why we're not on the same page to start with. So if you're coming from a religious viewpoint and you take things on faith, if you accept things without evidence, either sensory evidence or rational, logical sort of evidence, then that would be a big parting of the ways between your worldview and Ayn Rand's worldview. Let's see if I want to say anything else. I made a few notes as you were talking. I think I might leave it at that point. And then we can dig into that more and maybe some of the other topics you raised if you call back. But for now, just to kind of keep it simple and retainable, I'll just say that a very core idea of Ayn Rand's philosophy, which she called objectivism, is that reason is the only means of knowledge, and faith is not a means of knowledge. And oh, I'll say one more thing. So she's an atheist. She doesn't believe in God. Now, if you can give a rational argument for something like God, then that would be different than a faith-based belief in God. Someone like Tertullian, one of the early fathers of the church, is famous for saying creo qui absurdum, right? That was the Latin for I believe it because it's absurd. Now that's a very different mindset than someone more like Thomas Aquinas, who is giving arguments based on reason for the existence of God. Like he had the five arguments for God, the first cause argument, and I can't tell you off the top of my head what they all were, but he was giving uh, arguments based on reason, which isn't to say the arguments necessarily succeeded. Like maybe he made some error in reasoning in arguing for God, but at least there was some kind of argument, as opposed to the Tertullian sort of view where you just believe something because it's absurd, which is more aligned with what I would say is a faith-based sort of belief. There's no evidence for something, but you just believe it anyways. Um, so Ayn Rand was an atheist, and she didn't think there was a good argument for the existence of God. So I heard you mention God a few times. Um, so that would be another big parting of the ways. Yeah, you might have a very different view of the world. Maybe you think the world was created by a God, or maybe it's kept in existence by a God. But there's no place for a God at all in Ayn Rand's view, at least as God is traditionally conceived, with certain qualities like omnipotence, omnipresence, and so forth. She didn't think there was a basis for that sort of God, or other sorts of gods like the Greek gods, right? That were more anthropomorphic. Um, so, anyways, I think that's all I'm going to say right now. And then, if you want to call in again in a future live stream, we could dig into some of these points in further detail. But I do want to get to friend Harper's call. I see he called in. Did he? Oh, looks like he had to go because I don't see him in the waiting room anymore. Maybe he said something in the chat. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, he says he had to go. Catch us next time. Yeah, okay. Sorry I didn't get to you, friend Harper. Yeah, I wanted to say some in response to Sacnam while it was still fresh on my mind, and it gives him something to listen to later if he hears the rest of this live stream, which could be a basis for further discussion. But yeah, you're free to come back in a future live stream. I'm going to read through some more of these chats. Looks like it's just friend Harper since the last ones that I read. So let's see what else friend Harper had to say. He says hi to Sacnam. Then Continental. Oh, he's doing a pun on Kant's name. He spells Continental with Immanuel Kant's last name. I guess because the Sacnam had mentioned continental philosophy, I think. And then friend Harper says, define politics as Rand describes and see what he thinks, or economic power versus political power. Okay. I went to what I thought was a very fundamental issue, which is in epistemology, so reason versus faith, since that seemed like it might be a point where we differ. And that's going to condition so much else. So other concepts from ethics or politics are going to all rest indirectly or directly on more fundamental issues in politics. So I thought it might be good to go to the fundamental, because that's where the root of the disagreement or our different worldviews lies. And it might just make for a more productive discussion rather than starting on some more derivative kinds of issues like in politics. Then friend Harper says, oh, or the relationship between ethics and politics, just some ideas for discussion. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for those. Sometimes I don't think you always need to start with the most fundamental issues. And I think sometimes it makes sense to start with ethics or politics. And I often do that in my debates or discussions with people on YouTube. I think one of the reasons to start with the more derivative is because people often have a lot of motivation to talk about those as opposed to the more fundamental. But if you can then connect the derivative issues to the fundamental and show how, for instance, capitalism depends on egoism, um, which is Ayn Rand's view that you can't really defend capitalism unless you have an egoist morality. If you can show that you need the one for the other, then that can motivate a discussion of more fundamental issues. But I think often when you're just starting out in a discussion, it can make sense to start on some derivative topic and then show how that connects to a more fundamental topic, and then that will motivate discussion of the more fundamental topic. But to just go straight to the fundamental might seem unmotivated and not make for a good discussion. So I think if you can make the connection between the two topics clear, then that will motivate discussion of the fundamental. And then friend Harper says, when I talk to people who study philosophy, they use so many words that I never heard of, haha, like ontology. You never hear that word in Rand's works or in Opar. Yes, or at least much less often. You see something like metaphysics. I don't remember if ontology ever comes up in maybe like the appendix to Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology. But certainly it's less common than a term like metaphysics in the objectivist literature. And then friend Harper says, that reminds me, Gene Moroney put out a video via ARI, the Ayn Rand Institute, about communicating. Leonard Peikoff also has a course on communication. Objective Communication is the title of his course, which I think is now free on the Ayn Rand Institute campus websites. Certainly many of his courses are free there, maybe also on YouTube. Friend Harper says, I can chat about that stuff with you if you want. Oh, I guess that's the things he was just talking about. I appreciate that, friend Harper. So thanks for that offer. Yeah, maybe we can chat about that or other things next time. You mentioned in your last call that there was, you had some idea about teaching philosophy to high schoolers, something there you were interested in talking about. But anyways, guess you can decide on your topic next time. And then he says, had to go. Catch us next time. Yeah, thanks for coming by. Okay. I see it's just a few minutes till 4 o'clock Pacific. I think that's probably a good time to end the live stream because we had a couple calls and don't want to go too long so that my voice doesn't give out. But I think it was a good live stream. Had a lot of engagements. Got some more subscribers. Got a bunch of likes. So that was great. See, we got 3 people now. And there will be more watching later. And as I mentioned, the next live stream I think will be this weekend. No guarantee, but I think I will likely do a stream on Saturday or Sunday. Oh, I see. I don't know what time, but if you subscribe, you'll get probably at least a half-hour notification notice in advance from YouTube. I see CPG just came into the chat. He says, thanks. Welcome back, CPG. Last live stream, I spent a lot of time engaging with CPG in the chat. We were talking about Israel. And we didn't talk about Israel at all today, but maybe we'll probably will do it in some future live stream. Not sure when. I guess you all can drive the topics. I don't think I want to do it today because I want to wrap up soon. But feel free to raise it in a future live stream. All right. Thanks for coming by, everyone. I do appreciate the likes, the subscribes, the shares, the comments, and hope you all have a good rest of your day. Talk to you later. Bye.